Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is Sunday, July 3rd. We're halfway through the year. TJ Pittenger, Richie Barnes, and a special guest today, Jeff Culhane, the new voice of the Seminoles. Richie, Jeff, how you guys doing today?
Doing great, guys.
Glad
Thanks
to have
for
you,
having me.
Jeff.
Absolutely. Happy 4th to everybody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited for the long weekend. Which I have three. Jeff, I know you have kids too, but I've got 3 kids, so nothing's really a long weekend. It's just chase kids more around than do office work. But
long days,
such is life. Yeah, but we appreciate you for taking some time. We appreciate those tuning in to watch and listen to us today. Want to obviously give a quick shout out to Guthrie's. You can visit both of their locations at 1818 West Tennessee Street and 2550 North Monroe. Tell them that Double Fries No Slaw sent you, and make sure you get your gut box Double Fries No Slaw. Jeff, we talked a little bit off air about Guthrie's, what it is, the name of the podcast, all of that stuff. Fargo, what's the go-to? I don't know if Florida State's ever going to have any home and homes with Fargo. Maybe now that you're here, you can kind of arrange that. But we probably need to get back before we start doing that, because I don't want to take a loss in North Dakota. But what's the go-to eatery? What's the spot? Like in Tallahassee, there's a few. Guthrie's is obviously our favorite, but what's the spot you're recommending people go find in?
Well, in the upper Midwest, obviously, you can find a pretty good steak in this part of the country. My wife is looking forward to the seafood down in Tallahassee and down in the Gulf. She's a big sushi gal. I am not. I'll try it to appease her, but that's really about it for me. Oh man, steak. I tell you, there's a place called Maxwell's up here. Mezzaluna is another place. If you're looking for pizza, there's a local place in downtown Fargo called Sammy's. Rhombus Guys is a heck of a pizza place. I'm kind of a sub sandwich guy. And so there's a place here called Grand Junction. If you kind of like sandwiches and some of those things, they've got some awesome fries as well. But, Mix over in Moorhead, just across the river into Minnesota, to give you a little geography lesson there. They've got some great burgers as well. I know I'm leaving a ton of people out. If you're into the German food with the brats and the boots for the beer, Worst Beer Hall is a good one up here. And so there's a little bit of everything, if you can believe that, in this part of the country.
I like it. The answer is yes to all of that. I mean, we talked a little bit about how the podcast got its name. We talk about food just as much as we do football or FSU athletics or any of that, So yeah, yes to all of it. When you get to town, and you said it's probably a couple of weeks away, I don't know what time you're arriving in town, but Guthrie's is open the latest in town. You just let me know which location you pull up next to, and we'll hook you up with a gut box. Just text me when you're getting to town, and first one's on us. So,
like we talked about off the air, if it's a chicken basket and fast food, I'm in at some point.
You're our huckleberry there. So yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff there. There is good seafood. I really like Birds, which is an oyster joint. They've also got fantastic. I mean, this is kind of crazy, but they've got excellent oysters and the best burgers in town. So if you're out of seafood, that's the perfect place. Your wife can get her oysters, you can get a burger, and you'll be set. But
that, it's funny you bring that up, TJ. My first vacation my wife and I went on was to Myrtle Beach, and one of our first vacation dinners was at a local place. I'm sure Seminole fans have been there, called Bimini's. It's just a local hole in the wall, and she did some damage to some oysters there. I think that's when I knew I was going to marry her. She took down 24 oysters and could have taken down 24 more. It was big time.
You mentioned that when I was in New Orleans last, right before the Alabama LSU game in 2016. It was a top 10 matchup, ton of fun. I don't remember the name of the place. I'm gonna have to ask my buddy, but they have a place where you buy I don't know if they're still doing it now, like inflation and everything else and how food prices are crazy, but you bought a pint and you got half a dozen oysters for free. Yeah. And I was just like, this is the best deal ever. I mean, you're stumbling out of the place after drink
Don't
way
tell me
too
that,
many
TJ. I might
beers.
not make it to the tailgate.
Oh my goodness, it was amazing. And so anyway, tackle Bourbon Street after that. But okay, so we start with Duquesne. So that's a good transition. We'll talk about football here in a minute. If you're listening, if you're watching, if you could hit the share button, if you could hit the subscribe button, we certainly would appreciate it. But first game, Duquesne, going to be a night game at 5 p.m., but sunsets. We'll finish up under the lights in Doak. Then we head to New Orleans. But talking about that first game, I know that you're excited. But are there nerves? Like, are there nerves before this first game, or is it more so like, is it just a job? Is it another job? It's not another job, but talk to us about your thoughts when the War Chant's playing. I know you talked about that with Lane a little bit, but talk to us about that first game and what you're thinking there.
Well, I think there's going to certainly be some anxiousness. I don't know if I would call it nerves. Butterflies. I won't be nervous. I'll be ready. But if I were to sit here and tell you that, there wasn't a little bit of that floating around, I'd be lying to you, And so my son, I've got a 3-year-old son named Alexander. We've been putting on all of the YouTube pregame videos from everyone that posts them during the pregame lead up to the War Chant and Osceola and Renegade. And he's doing pretty well getting the War Chant down. He's got pretty good form and rocking it pretty good right now. So we're off to a good start there. But I think, honestly, I think when I put the headset on and I'm in the booth and the ball is kicked, it'll be, I don't want to call it just another game because it's a bigger deal than that, obviously, at Florida State. But for me, I think I'll be able to settle in. Guys, I'll be honest with you. I'm more nervous about everything like the moving. Nobody likes moving. We're packing, we're selling the house, driving a 3-year-old and a 10-day-old down from Fargo to Tallahassee. I'm more nervous about that than anything else. I think, once we get down there, I get to be around the team and the coaches and the guys and everybody within the department. I'll feel more at home and feel like we're locked in and part of that Seminole family. And so, I think there'll be some goosebumps. There'll probably be a little bit of moment of, not a long one, but a quick moment of recollection of all the time and the hard work and the people that have helped me along the way to get this and earn this opportunity, which is a huge honor. And so we'll probably have one of those moments for myself. And then after that, let's go. Let's rock. Let's play football. Let's have fun. Bar none, Tom Block. Those guys are rock stars. I can't wait to work with them and be a part of their team. So we'll be ready. Once the ball's kicked, boot meets the ball just after 5 p.m. Eastern time at Doak. Let's go.
I love it. No, and you mentioned your son doing, getting him down on the War Chant. I just put my 2-year-old down for a nap. And before we nap, we say our prayers and, at the very end of it, in Jesus' name, and he's 2, so amen, and then and every single time he goes, let's go Seminoles, and my wife's like, stop doing that after you pray. And I was like, listen, we pray first, but then we say that. I actually talked with Richie about this right after you were announced, and I'll pass it to him after this. But the thing that we've mentioned and kind of talked about is you're following a legend, and sometimes that can be tricky, right? Or maybe not tricky. Like you said, you're a professional. You're going to go in and do your job. But Gene was the voice that I grew up listening to, and that I have all the cool memories of, and that I heard called national championships. And the realization I had was, and I mentioned my son, you're the voice that my kids are going to grow up listening to, right? They'll hear the highlights of Gene and play some of that, and that's really a cool. I mean, it's a cool perspective for me, just because when you get older and your perspectives change and you think about your kids more so than yourself and things like that, you're like, man, you're gonna call some of their favorite memories, right? Hopefully more good than bad, but you're gonna call some of their favorite memories. So does just that thought of following Gene gonna maybe be the next generation, the new era of Seminole football, like Gene called the Jimbo and the Bobby years, and then you're going to kind of usher us into the future. What does that maybe bigger picture mean for you?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's a huge honor. And I guess you don't really think of it from that perspective, I suppose. But it's just, it's a tremendous opportunity, and it's one that I've always, dreamed of having. Guys, for me, it's a dream come true. I mean, the last 2 months have been filled with a ton of emotions. It's been a whirlwind. People here in Fargo have been amazing. It's so interesting to, when the news was announced. I played golf yesterday with some friends and some colleagues, and one of the guys I played golf with is from the Twin Cities. And it's always really cool to see the reach of a program and a brand like Florida State. And I've had so many people tell me, they had their local favorite college team first, whether it was, an NDSU or a University of Minnesota or whatever. But I've had a ton of people tell me that Florida State, late 80s, early 90s, were sort of the next favorite squad for people in my part of the country, and for some, their favorite team they adopted. And so it's just been exciting to feel the reach of this and the brand that is Florida State University, such a great place to go to school, and then the athletics programs and the history and tradition speak for itself. And it's a big responsibility. It's a huge role. I realize I'm an ambassador for all things Noles right now, and I'm so excited to have that role and have that challenge. And following Gene is obviously just that as well. It's a challenge. You're never going to replace Gene Deckerhoff. He will forever be the voice of the Seminoles. I mean, 48 years with hoops, 43 with football. We've talked a few times, and Gene and Ann, I just talked to them the other day. Actually, they sent my sons some Noles gear, actually from Garnet and Gold as well. And they sent us a care package. And I kind of joke with Gene, I'm like, hey, it could have been, like 15 or 20 years instead of almost half a century you did this thing. That might have made it a little easier on me or the next guy. And so we kind of joked about that, but I can't wait. I always, I think people are going to find that I bring a lot of enthusiasm. I bring a lot of excitement, and obviously take it very seriously to tell the success stories and paint the picture of the greatest moments and memories for everybody for years to come.
Yeah, and Jeff, just talk about how you ended up here, because obviously, when we heard Gene was retiring, that was massive news, because like TJ said, that's the only voice him and I know of for Florida State football. That's been it. Obviously, it's a competitive process. You look at a position like this, it's almost like a Supreme Court, right? It's a lifetime appointment if things go well, as we hope. So we're going to have you here for a very long time. But how did it get started? Did you just see the posting? Obviously, I'm sure you send some of your best stuff into Florida State and hope it stands out. But what was that process like, just reaching out and applying for the job, as most of us have to do in the real world?
Yeah, it was, first it starts with, that dream of being a part of a place like Florida State, and being at a place like this where I believe it's one of the great brands in not only college athletics, but in all of sports. It's wide reaching. It's a place where it flat out matters to everybody. It's ingrained in your DNA from the day that you're born until the day you die. And I've always dreamed of being at a place like this. And, so many great people are where I've been at, at NDSU and other stops along the way, Lincoln, Morgantown with Nebraska and West Virginia. And there were only really a handful of places, because of the people I've worked with up here in Fargo, that I would seek out. And I'm sure you've heard me tell this story before, but in a weird, direct, indirect way, if you will, Gene was on my radio show in Lincoln over a decade ago in the summertime, and we were talking about Florida State football, and it was a preseason top 25 segment around this time of year, and asked Gene how his summer had been going. And he told a story about he and Bobby Bowden, his relationship with Coach Bowden, and how they just spent some time together over the weekend, and they're on the water having a few cold drinks and a shrimp boil and loving life. And from that moment when Gene told me that story, it also kind of seared into my my brain that this is a business of relationships as well. and connecting with people, helping people, and learning about everyone along the way. And from that point on, obviously Florida State, I'd watched a ton of FSU football in the late 80s, 90s, through the 2000s, right? And so, but from that point on, it stuck with me for whatever reason that this would be a place that I'd love to be associated with. And if I ever got the opportunity to go through that process, I would attack it. And saw, just like you guys, when Gene announced that he was retiring and moving on, from there, you kind of go through the process. And I've been lucky to meet some great people along the way that have helped me throughout my entire career. And, you try and connect with the folks in Tallahassee that are doing the hiring, and Michael Alford and Caleb Swan, the general manager of Seminole Sports Properties. I'm just so excited to work with and work for those men. They've got great vision. It's amazing, some of the things we've talked about already. And I would say it was about little over a 2-month process that eventually culminated here in June, and was obviously announced on June 20th. And so, yeah, ultra competitive, honored again for the opportunity. There were so many great broadcasters that wanted this job, and rightfully so. And I can't wait, guys. Can't wait to get rolling.
And Jeff, it sounds like Florida State's taken this position in the direction that a lot of universities have, right? It's no longer just to show up on game day, play-by-play, and do your homework throughout the week, but it sounds like you'll be managing a whole team and content as well, something you're no stranger to. Obviously, a quick Google search, you've done plenty with pregame, postgame shows, different podcasts. What are some of the things you're excited to bring Florida State fans, content-wise, that maybe they haven't had in the past? Because, like I mentioned, Gene was phenomenal on game day, and that's kind of what he was known for. Yeah. But you got a little bit more on your plate coming up, it sounds like.
Yeah, Richie, I just think a little bit of more, a little more of everything, quite honestly. And there's such an appetite, such a hunger to consume all things Noles, and doing different items, producing different content ideas, whether it's podcasting, whether it's sit down conversations from a video podcasting standpoint. We've got some fun, creative ideas that we've kicked around as well that will give Seminole fans a little bit more of a look behind the curtain and behind the scenes. And, football is obviously big, but it's more than that. There are so many great success stories to tell at Florida State University, not only athletically, but from a university standpoint. Also, I know you guys talked to Michael about this a little bit last, I think, Friday or Thursday on one of your most recent pods, and he hit it on the head. I mean, we're gonna try and cast a wide net here and bring in a lot of different topics and a lot of different things that I think will interest a lot of people. And so we're gonna certainly start with athletics. Who knows how far or how wide that net will reach from a university perspective, but Stephen Ponder at Seminole Boosters, they've got some exciting things going on here that we're going to let people know about and continue to educate folks on as well. And I mean, I think Leonard Hamilton's basketball program is amazing. Watching that from afar and the success that they have had, I think they're undervalued nationally. I think they need more love there. The women's sports at Florida State, I just talked with Coach Brooke the other day as she rolls into her first full-time year as the head coach. I know she had the 1 year for Coach Sue when she was taking care of her mother a couple of years ago. And Coach Brooke and I talked about some different things to illustrate some success stories. And, women's athletics, the Olympic sports are outstanding. I think we're just going to bring a little more. And, look, Michael Alford, I've had a chance, obviously, to get to know him here over the last couple of months, but it's interesting times right now. There's no question. But what I can tell you in the time that I've been able to get to know Michael is that he is going to do whatever it takes to help Florida State, to make Florida State the elite winner that it has been and that it is going to be and continue to be in so many different ways. And so I think there's going to be a lot of conversations with Michael as well that will share and continue to keep Seminole fans, in the loop on what's going on with his vision and what some of the steps are moving forward there. So it's exciting. Stay tuned for what we have coming up.
Yeah, I love that. We love Coach Brooke. She's absolutely awesome. We really do. And I'm glad that there's a focus on that, because we've kind of prided ourselves, and really we love the Olympic sports too, right? Like, we know football gets the love, and Doak's my background, and every one of Richie's pictures back there of Doak, we get it. But we do love the excellence that our Olympic sports bring.
Yeah, and not to cut you off, TJ, but I mean, softball comes to mind with what Lonnie and that crew have done. I mean, 55, 56 wins. Apologize for not knowing the exact number. Hosting a regional, who knows? We'll see what we can do. Obviously, on the radio side, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, we take care of. But we're going to kick some ideas around. Softball, is there an avenue from a standpoint there? From a radio perspective, who knows? We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff, but we're going to do whatever we can to, again, tell these stories and educate folks on what's going on, continuing to educate folks as they're locked in.
Yeah, I love it. If you guys are watching, if you're listening, we certainly would appreciate if you hit the share button, if you hit the subscribe button. Jeff, I'll ask you a couple more and get you out of here. Again, appreciate your time, but you've called some fun stuff. I think when you YouTube your first one that comes up isn't even a NDSU one. It's the UConn game, the heave, which that I'm almost just still in shock that even happened, right? And I'm sure you are too. But I know the championships are fun too. But do you have anything that like really stands out as, man, this is what I remember as like, here are some fun memories of things you've called at really any of the stops?
Man, yeah. You talk about the UConn Cincinnati 4 overtime game back in the spring of, I think it was 2016, I believe. Yes, in March, and I called that game with IMG's national broadcast down in Orlando, and it was myself and Tim Welsh, who is a great friend and does some great work for ESPN on the TV side, and that was unbelievable. I'm rare. I don't know if I'll ever see one of those again. I know, Florida State had some crazy finishes with Leonard's team this last year, but that was about 70, 75 feet. Jalen Adams off of the window let it go, and that one was wild. I mean, that'll be one that I'll never forget. That really has a non-affiliation with any of the schools I've been at. So that was an exciting moment for me. But different stops. Most recently, obviously, at North Dakota State, memorable, so many memorable football games, national championships. Lucky enough to call 4 of those. It's crazy to think about with NDSU football. My first year, 6 years ago, NDSU went to Iowa and beat the Iowa Hawkeyes in a walk-off winner, 37-yard field goal from Cade Peterson, and that one sort of introduced me, I feel like, to a lot of Bison fans locally in my first year, trying to capture a big moment. Before that, I was lucky enough to call the West Virginia Women's Big 12 regular season championship in 2013 and 2014 with Coach Mike Carey and a great group of young women who had just an amazing season there. And being a part of that in my first year was a lot of fun. And so, I've been blessed to be around some great programs, great coaches, amazing student athletes that have allowed me to kind of be a part of the team and welcome me in. And I'm so looking forward to that here coming up with everyone at Florida State. Coach Norvell, his staff, they're excited. They've obviously have done a ton here from the end of last season into where we're at right now, addressing their needs, bringing in great players, transfer portal, recruiting, and attacking this upcoming season with a vigor of getting back to a bowl game and putting more wins on the resume. And so fired up, guys, fired up to get it going. And those are just a few of them, I guess, right there when you talk about the things that I remember with the past decade plus or so of my career.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think we're all excited for you to start your career, but I do have one question, something to follow up earlier. I did not have a great day yesterday. I'm talking like a 92, 93. How'd you shoot, man? I know you said you went out and played as well. And are you excited to get to the Seminole Legacy Golf Course, which Jack Nicklaus just redid?
Man, yes, 100%. Richie, that's probably where I'm at. I'm probably right in that area. I'm a guy that's gonna, on a good day, be in the 80s. On a bad day, I won't tell you what the score is. I probably stop keeping score, to be honest. But yeah, I like to get out and swing it around. Like I mentioned, I'm no rock star on the golf course, but I keep people on their toes. If we got a money game going, I can surprise here or there, and that's I think what upsets people playing with me is I kind of creep out of nowhere and get you on 2 or 3 holes to swing the round in our favor, pull a little cash in our pockets. But yeah, I can't wait.
Like it.
Yeah, my wife let me get out yesterday. I got 9 holes in at a place called Oxbow Country Club up here in Fargo, and had an absolute blast. And so yeah, I can't wait to get down there and swing the sticks. And I see all areas of the golf course, guys. I don't I don't skimp on that. I like to play everywhere when I'm out there.
Alfred will have us all out there before it's too long. But yeah, he'll get you out there for sure. I've heard that's one of his favorite spots on or close to campus. But Jeff, thank you so much for hanging out. We appreciate it. We're very much, I was going to say looking forward to seeing you, but looking forward to hearing you in the next couple of next month. It's already July, so next month we'll hear you on the call. Excited for it. From all of us and everybody in FSU Nation, welcome. We're very excited to have you, and man, good luck with moving. You mentioned that earlier, and it just sent chill bumps on my spine because I would hate to do that too. I moved 15 minutes down the road and I hated it. I couldn't imagine going across country. So prayers up there.
Yeah. Thanks, TJ. Thank you, Richie. And I will make sure to fire up double fries, no slaw at Guthrie's right when I get to Tallahassee. I can't wait for that.
Only way, my man. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care. Jeff Culhane, the new voice of the Seminoles. Appreciate him coming on. Richie's got another golf buddy. Everybody that comes on just ends up being like another golf buddy that, nobody who just wants to sit around and drink beer.
I never get back to Tallahassee. I'll have some friends to play with now, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe you can find a golf course in Louisiana. So appreciate him for coming on. Like I said, I'm excited to hear him. And obviously, we love Gene and we love all that he did for FSU, but excited to, I'm really excited to see kind of this new era of what we're going to hear, and really excited that, like he mentioned, not just football, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a day that Gene did literally everything, right? And as he got older, it, became tougher for him to get out there and do stuff, but he was I remember watching baseball games that he was calling on that Sunshine Network, channel like 31 on cable on Saturday afternoon and stuff. And it just became harder and harder as he got older. So excited for that a ton. Appreciate him for hanging out with us. Thank you guys again for watching and listening to that. We're going to talk a little bit of recruiting. And so I would appreciate it again if you guys would do us do us a favor and hit that share button, smash that subscribe button, and let's get the word out that we're live for maybe another 15, 20 minutes, 30 max. We'll be wrapped up before 1 o'clock. But hit that button, share it, let the people know. We certainly do appreciate that. Want to give a quick shout out to Gramco. Gramco has all of your Delta 8 needs and has them covered. Anything you need, from gummies to hard candy to vapes to pre-rolls, whatever you need. Gramco is completely legal in the state of Florida, founded by FSU students, now alums. They are college football junkies and Seminole junkies just like you and me. They'll be in New Orleans with us for the tailgate, which info on that should come out tomorrow. So keep your eyes peeled to our social medias for info on the tailgate. If you don't have a tailgate, come and hang out with us and the good folks at Gramco as we take to New Orleans and hopefully beat those LSU Tigers to get to 2-0 on the season. DFNS 25. I get all these codes mixed up because I do 8 different pods and 8 different shows, spaces and everything else. DFNS 25 at thegramco.com. Take care of all of your Delta 8 needs. The blue raspberry gummies are my favorite. Richie says they're great for the golf course as I see him sipping on his beer. But go order you some Gramco and support the people that support this show. Richie, we've got a few things to run down here. Appreciate Jeff again for hanging out. We've got some recruiting news that's kind of popping. First up, Chris Parson finishes 8th at the Elite 11 after an impressive showing. He wins the rail shot competition on the first night of the event. The Parson situation is definitely interesting. He had a good showing at the Elite 11, finished really, really well. You know, I think there's a chance that he ends up in this class. I think it's going to depend on what happens with Florida State and Brock Glenn, who should be announcing sometime later this month. But Parson may end up in the class. And so when the lights are on, I think that we'll kind of see as time goes. But it was nice to see him have a good showing and do well out there, right?
Yeah, it was for sure because, as of right now, he is still a Florida State commit. And like you said, it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens with Brock Glenn. Ricky Collins, another prospect Florida State was after, finished just ahead of Parsons. I think 7th. Parson was 8th. But yeah, the quarterback board, it's going to be interesting. And you'd like to get, some sort of resolution sooner than later, because we all know that come November and then December early signing period, if you're scrambling to find a quarterback, you've messed up at that point. So we really need to get some clarity, preferably before the season gets started. But it was nice to see Parson go out there and show some fans that, hey, he might have it. Like you said, it's, maybe it was just under the lights. He had a chip on his shoulder, wanted to prove something. But a great showing. I'm not sure what the rail shot event was. It just looked like they were running at sideline routes, and he just hit it on the money from the clip that Bud Elliott tweeted. But yeah, it'll be an interesting situation to continue to monitor. And if he does end up in this class, which I'm all for him and another quarterback, I think if you can get 2 high school quarterbacks in this class, whether it be Brock Glenn and Chris Parson, I think you're really happy with that signing class at quarterback. But it was good to see him go out there and perform well and show, maybe he does have, that chip on his shoulder and he's ready to compete. And if he brings that to Tallahassee, that's not a bad thing, because worst case, he's just going to push the competition to get better.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to Dane Draper. He wrote an excellent piece this morning. I shared it on Twitter. But if you go to Knowles247.com, he wrote a piece that breaks down all of the July decisions that are coming up. Yeah. So June was a massive month for visits. There's a big visit weekend that may be scheduled on the last weekend of the month here in July. But a lot of commitments that are very, very close to decision should be announcing this month. Got a couple coming up this week that are considering FSU. But Dane broke down the 6 targets, when they're going to be committing. I certainly would encourage you to go check that out. Carol in the comments asked about the SEC Big Ten conference realignment. We are certainly going to get to that after we talk a little bit of recruiting. But go check out that on Knowles247.com. The targets being Lucan Simmons, Keldrick Falk, Avery Stewart, Brock Glenn. We mentioned the quarterback, Dalen Smothers, and Tavion Gadsden. So really good piece there. And so go check that out. 3-star linebacker DeMarco Ward commits to Florida State over UCF, Louisville, and Wake. Certainly need linebacker recruiting. I don't know that this, gets Shannon off the hook or anything like that with how the linebacker recruiting hasn't been great for the last year or two. Not that that's on him. Obviously, Marv was here last year. But, a kid that Florida State likes, a kid that Florida State thinks they can develop. I don't know that he's coming in a day one starter or anything like that next year. But a good pickup by FSU. Had some other, decent offers in there. I mean, you didn't go up against the big boys with, Alabama or Georgia or even Florida, but Louisville, Wake, UCF. I mean, you certainly don't want to lose a battle to those guys. And so I think he's a take. I think he'll be a take through this class. And so a commit for Florida State with DeMarco Ward announcing last week. Any thoughts there, Richie, on linebacker recruiting or any recruiting in general?
Yeah, I mean, linebacker recruiting needs to get better, obviously. But at the same time, if we take a step back and look who we beat out for that UCF, Wake, and Louisville, that's kind of the world we're living in right now. So it's up to Mike Norvell and this team to go out there and prove it on the field. And we've talked about how helpful it could be early on in the season. If you can beat LSU, Louisville, split that, God forbid, go win both those games, start off 3-0, 4-0. You might enter the conversation with some of these other players, but right now I don't think you're in a position, especially at linebacker, to be overly picky on who you take. This is a guy, again, he's not some 5-star can't miss prospect, but he did have very serious interest from other schools within your division, right? And you're trying to stay ahead of them because you've been on the bottom tier of the division the past few years. If you want to get back to that level, catching Clemson's obviously the goal here, but being number 2 is the first step before passing Clemson. So you're going to have to win recruiting battles like this. So even if it's not the sexiest take, that we could possibly have had at linebacker, it is good to get a linebacker in the boat because we know we need them, and we will not be done there. And I'll be interested to see where Coach Norvell, Coach Shannon, and the defense go from there when it comes to linebacker recruiting.
Yeah, I think that we've got to continue to battle there and certainly need to add to that room. Couple of announcements coming up this week. Not to steal from Dane, I won't list out everybody else's dates, but because they are so close, 4-star defensive back Avery Stewart should be announcing on Wednesday, July 6th. And 4-star defensive end Keldrick Falk is announcing on Tuesday, the 5th. So a couple of targets that have FSU in their final 3. For Falk, it's final 4. He's got a couple, but Auburn, Clemson, big ones to watch out for with Falk. Auburn, Kentucky, big ones to watch out for with Stewart. Florida State I think feels good about both those, but it's recruiting, and they felt good about Travis Hunter a week before. So until I get that out of my mind, we'll never say anything's 100% settled. I do want to shout out quickly Garnet and Gold. I love that Jeff mentioned that Gene sent them a care package from Garnet and Gold. That's really, really cool to me. Like, just the fact that Gene's the absolute legend. I don't know how many people are, super concerned with the people replacing them and the people that take over their position or their job. But that just speaks to the person that Gene is, and speaks to the fact that he wants what's best for FSU. He wants what's best for Seminole Radio and all of that. And so shout out to Deckerhoff, shout out to Culhane, but most of all, shout out to Garnet and Gold. Appreciate their support. If you want to be like Gene, if you want to be like Jeff, you should shop at Garnet and Gold. Don't support Fanatics. Don't support any of these other brands. Alumni Hall, anywhere else, shop at Garnet and Gold. It's garnetandgold.com, and you can use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW, no spaces. Code NOSLAW will get you 15% off of checkout. That Nike drop is coming, again, I can say it now, next month. So the Nike drop will be here in August. You guys don't want to miss out on that. Fanatics is not offering you a deal. Nike drop. Use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW. Shop where Deckerhoff shops and get your Garnet and Gold gear using our code. Again, that Nike stuff, I know it's not cheap. It's not just at Garnet and Gold. It's kind of expensive everywhere. If you order $75 or more, you get free shipping. So use code NOSLAW. Get you a couple of things when the Nike stuff drops next month. If you need anything for summer, Garnet and Gold has you covered. Go to garnetandgold.com and save 15% using our code. Again, NOSLAW. The ACC announced a 3-5-5 scheduling format. I called it 3-3-5 for like half the week, but thank you to Mike Ferguson at doublefriesnoslaw.com for correcting that. We chatted with Ingram about that quickly, so you guys can go back. It's on our YouTube page or Facebook or iTunes, wherever you're listening to this, wherever you're watching it. You can find that. So I won't share a ton of thoughts on this. I have one more thought. But you can kind of catch my thoughts, catch Ingram Smith's thoughts. We did a quick pop-up episode like an hour after that was announced just because Richie couldn't step away from work. But Richie, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then I have one final thought, and we'll move on from the new scheduling format that Florida State has.
Yeah, I thought you and Ingram did a great job kind of breaking it all down, saying, who got the best draw and who did not get the most favorable draw. Obviously, Florida State did not get a favorable draw, but that was to be expected, right? Because you're not going to get rid of Miami or Clemson. And Syracuse, it's not a bad third team to have. I think it's rough for the Olympic sports because when you look at traveling, especially, baseball and things like that, are they going to have that same, connection or whatever for those Olympic sports, or is it just a football only thing? I guess we'll see what happens there. But for a football standpoint, I don't hate it. I would have preferred Georgia Tech because Atlanta's an easy trip up. But a good point is that several have made, we're still going to play Georgia Tech every 4 years, right? So it's not a huge deal. It's not the end all be all. You got a team that, quite frankly, is not very good at football year in and year out. And that's all I wanted, right? Sure, we would have loved to have Duke, But I think Syracuse, it's a good team to have. And I think, Michael Alford has his reasons why he kind of was looking at Syracuse or maybe even Boston College. But at the end of the day, it's a game that Florida State should win more often than not. Just got to take care of Clemson and Miami. And again, if we're complaining about who the third team is, granted, if we had got, Virginia Tech at full force or something, yeah, then we have a legit gripe. But there's no other team that really should scare us. I mean, if we'd got NC State, that would have been a little rough. But I think Syracuse, I'll gladly take that compromise from my end.
Yeah, no, I think that's the move. I also think that the ACC was, doing a little bit of a favor to Georgia Tech with not sticking us and Clemson on their schedule. I spoke with Michael Alford and, chatted about a couple of things off record, but the one thing, that was kind of on record was we understand that our draw is rough, but in no way did we want to lose Clemson or Miami. Like he made that pretty clear. We wanted to keep both of those. So don't, as many things as we want to blame the ACC for, again, I don't want to speak for him too much and give too much away, but he wanted to keep both of those, and FSU wanted to keep both of those, and he made that known, and so those two games are on the schedule. So it's tough, but that's fine. That's what Bobby wanted. Bobby wanted anybody, anywhere, anytime. Bring it on. So yeah, the third game though, I'm glad it's not in NC State. So, and you're right. You're playing Georgia. You're playing Atlanta every, twice every 5 years, right? If not more. So, you're playing Georgia Tech 3 times, and I guess every 5 years, 2 will be home and 2 will be away. So you're still playing them plenty. And let me just tell you this. This is kind of, little insight that I won't go too deep, but I would say be thankful that, Georgia Tech didn't get put on the schedule for some other reasons that we can maybe talk about later. I don't know if you were still on when Michael and I talked about that or not, but yeah, just be thankful that isn't the case. I know you guys wanted it. My only takeaway from this, Richie, is exactly what Carol just said. It'll probably be nullified soon because we won't even be in the ACC that long. That's a great transition. Carol, I appreciate you commenting that. Yeah, it's like we're all been out of shape on this. We'll probably play the schedule 1 or 2 times. Like it's not even going to be a thing. We'll be in another conference.
I missed something in the college football world. What's going on?
Yeah, maybe you might have been on that golf course too much. Every time I get on Instagram now, Richie's like on a golf course. But Carol, I think you're spot on. So obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, UCLA and USC head to the Big Ten in the latest. I don't even know the latest part of drama as it goes to conference realignment, and so. Richie, I don't know what this means directly for FSU, but I do know that FSU indirectly means that more change is coming, right? The big conferences, the Power 5 is about to be the Power 2, and they are in a battle or in a war right now to acquire talent, right? We talk about college football being a talent acquisition business, which it certainly is from a coaching standpoint. It certainly is from a player standpoint. It certainly is from an administrative standpoint. You obviously want good athletic directors. Miami picked up Clemson's. We have Alford now. So I think that the conferences see it the same way. And Notre Dame's a massive, massive domino that needs to fall. Sounds like the Big Ten's kind of just waiting on what Notre Dame has to say and what they're going to do. But Florida State is going to go somewhere. Like, I'll just put that out there. Like, Florida State is not going to get left behind. Florida State will end up somewhere. I would lean SEC. I don't think that the SEC, what I think, and I think Miami and Florida State end up in the SEC. And the biggest reason is because I don't think the SEC wants the Big Ten to have a foothold here in Florida, or at least a relevant foothold, right? Like I could see the Big Ten picking up like a USF or UCF or something like that just to try and get into Florida somehow. But I don't think it'll be irrelevant. I don't think the SEC will want a brand like Florida State or Miami to go to the Big Ten and kind of give them that foothold. I think that they'll want that. When you look at the big brands remaining and still out there, right? It's Clemson, it's Notre Dame, it's Florida State, it's Miami, North Carolina, Oregon, Oklahoma State, Baylor. I mean, at that point, like you're really dropping down.
If you want to go basketball, but
I just don't think basketball. Yeah, I don't think basketball matters. NC State, you could throw them in there. Boston College for regionality, TCU, Stanford, Utah. I mean, you're talking like 15 teams, right? 15, 20 teams that matter. And I think all 15 or 20 of those teams are going to end up somewhere, and I think they'll all be out of where they're at right now. And so Arizona State to try and get into that area, Arizona. But Florida State's in the top half of that and not even close. Like they're probably like when you look at your 5 biggest brands that are just like kind of in limbo right now, it's Notre Dame, it's Clemson, Florida State, it's Miami, and then someone else. I don't know. I don't know who that 5th one is. And I don't think it even matters. I think there's a distinct Oregon. It's probably Oregon, and then I think it's a drop off from there. Right, like those are your kind of top. Those schools will end up somewhere. I'd put Oregon and Notre Dame in the Big Ten, and I think it's going to be the 3 from the ACC here going to the SEC. So I don't know. I've heard some rumblings that, and I know that people report on Twitter or you see, sources are telling me this. Like I don't know if anything's really happening right now. I've heard some rumblings that we could hear something in the next several months before 2023. I don't know exactly what that means for a timeline, but the what's been pointed out to me is that Texas and Oklahoma are joining in the 2025 season. So I think that if we were to go to the SEC and something was to happen, it would probably be that year. Not writing that in stone, not saying that other things can't happen or things can't change, but that's kind of been what's been kind of voiced my way. So, Richie, thoughts on conference realignment? What do you think it means for Florida State indirectly? Where you are? Are you worried? Are you not worried? I'm not nervous at all, by the way, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not really nervous right now because, like you mentioned, if the ACC does blow up, which it may not entirely, but maybe it ends up like the Big East, right, where they're kind of basketball-only conference. It's interesting because I don't think the triangle schools are going to stick together, right? The Wake Forest, UNC, Duke, NC State, they're all going to stay together as long as they can. But then you do have the kind of the redheaded stepchilds, and you think of Florida State as the top one. Clemson, is kind of accepted into the, good old boys network of the ACC, so to speak. That's who the ACC, if they could have their pick, Clemson would be, the team that running out in front, leading the way. But then you look at Miami, and while they haven't had great recent history, it's still a major national brand, right? And I think this is where the ACC kind of dropped the ball in the initial realignment. They were struggling so much, like, we need markets. So let's get Syracuse and Boston College. What have either of them brought to the conference at all? No one in Boston College or in the Boston area of Massachusetts cares about college football. It is NFL up there. I doubt they gained much market share by going into Boston. Same with Syracuse. And I love the school, family ties to the school. But what did they really bring to the conference? Their basketball program hasn't been what we thought we were getting when they had, Carmelo Anthony back in 2002. So I think the ACC made some miscalculations, and I think it's a lesson for the Big Ten. Like you mentioned, they could go get a UCF, USF, but what's that really do? Okay, yeah, you're in the Florida market, but guess what? If Florida State or Miami's on, every local sports bar is going to have those games on. No one's going to care about watching USF versus Nebraska, right? It's just not moving the needle. So I think you hit the nail on the head where Florida doesn't want Florida State in the SEC. They love that advantage in recruiting and the monetary payouts that they get at the end of the year. But it's certainly beats the Big Ten coming and picking up Florida State and Miami, because now you're really in trouble because the Big Ten, they got us all the way down to the southeastern Florida to Miami, all the way to the West Coast with USC and UCLA and the whole Midwest, and they're in the Northeast. The SEC's beyond regional at that point. I know they're now going to stretch from Texas over to Florida, but I think it'd be a wise move for the SEC to just bite the bullet and say, listen, give me Clemson, Florida State, and Miami just to keep them out of the Big Ten. And I think that's the decision that has to be made right now. I don't think these decisions discussions between UCLA, USC, and the Big Ten came out of nowhere. They've probably been going on for a long time. But typically when we see the realignment, the announcements are kind of out of nowhere. But it's pretty obvious that those discussions have been going, in the back channel for a very long time. I fully expect that this is not going to make Florida State, Clemson, Miami start looking for new options. I think our ADs have already been looking those options, exploring these options. Obviously, they can't go public in saying that, but we know Mike Lawford is very close with several ADs, including our friends down south. So I think it's going to be interesting. And like you mentioned, I'd be surprised if the ACC is around in the way we see it, 3 years from now, I think it'd be a home run for the Big Ten to say, hey, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, let's make this thing happen and see what the SEC does. But I really have no idea. If I had to predict, I do think the SEC is more likely, but I'm definitely not going to rule out the Big Ten because I think that they probably have their eyes on Florida, and we'll see what happens.
If the Big Ten made the move to bring on those 5 schools that we mentioned, right? I think the 5 biggest brands still left out there: Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Miami, right? If the Big Ten got those 5 brands, and I'm not talking like what's like those schools right now, I'm talking those schools like when they kind of get back, right? Like we know Florida State's been down. We know Miami's not been what they should have been for the last several years. Would that make the Big Ten more formidable than the SEC? Like, because then imagine the SEC takes like your next 5 schools, right? Like your Oklahoma State, your maybe UCF to have another school in Florida, your Baylor, your Arizona and Utah, right? Or something like that, or Stanford and Utah, right? So Stanford's a lock for the Big Ten with their academics, but let's just say that like Big Ten gets the next best 5 schools out there, which are again, Oregon, Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and Notre Dame. And then the rest of it goes through the SEC. Does that make the Big Ten more formidable? Is the SEC still like the premier conference? What are your thoughts there?
It's tough. I'd probably still.
That's a dumb
SEC.
hypothetical, but
I'd probably still lean SEC, and partially what they mastered, right, when the initial realignment happened. Because remember, up until Florida won in 2006, the SEC was kind of an afterthought in the national conversation. But Florida kicked off a string of 7 straight national titles, and they made that branding and they capitalized on it. So the SEC, it was a perfect situation of timing and branding and saying, hey, we're going to make everyone know we are the premier conference. Even if we're not, we are going to tell everybody we are. They had us believing that schools like, Ole Miss and Mississippi State would be, national powers. And we saw them both in the top 3 of the college football playoff rankings for a week in 2014, which we knew clearly was behind the branding, because if you watch the teams, they weren't up there. I don't know, but I do think the Big Ten is definitely the conference that can compete. If anyone's going to take down the SEC in today's college football landscape, it's going to be the Big Ten, and it's going to be doing it by adding schools like Notre Dame and Miami and Florida State and Clemson. And what I think stands out, and Carol commented on it, the Big Ten, they do take their academics very seriously. And I think it's a big deal that Florida State has worked themselves into a top 20 academic institution in the country, because that's a much easier sell to the Big Ten if they decide they wanted a school like Florida State. 20 years ago, the Big Ten never would have even considered Florida State, just because,
right,
they were around the top 50 public schools, and they take those rankings seriously. Clemson's a very good public school. Obviously, Notre Dame, the Big Ten, they've been wanting to add them in football for the longest time. I'm excited. I do think we're looking in the next few years, some sort of super conference. I think the next 2-3 years between realignment and NIL, it's going to turn a lot of college football fans off. But I do think when it all settles, it's still going to be the same product we all love, and we'll still be watching these games every single Saturday.
Yeah, I think I lean SEC as well. I think you're right on that. Mostly for perception, right? Like we just have this perception that the SEC is so much better than everyone else. Adding brands like Oklahoma and Texas are huge, but Texas at this point. So here's why I think perception-wise it'd be SEC. I don't know that it would really be much different. If you took Alabama out of it, it'd probably just be split even, right? Like I know the SEC built that 7-year run that was really, really great. And, they had multiple teams winning: Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and Florida, all won, most of them multiple times within that 7-year run before yours truly, Florida State, ended it. But that's not the SEC today, right? Alabama and Georgia are elite, and everyone else is a mid-level program at best. Who's the next best team in the SEC? A&M. So they went 8-4 last year, right? Like they went 4-4 in the conference. So like they're the next best team in the SEC, and they can't even get above 500 in their own conference. So the SEC is good, but it is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly top heavy. And if you were to take Alabama out of that, we would view the SEC very, very differently. And so, yeah, but again, for that perception, I'd probably rather be in the SEC because that's a lot, perception is reality, right? There's a reason the SEC does better numbers. Also, I do think football in the South is different. And so, yeah, I'd rather be in the SEC than the Big Ten. I do think in 10 years, they're not even going to be called that anymore because, when the SEC picks up Oregon, I don't know how you call that the Southeastern Conference anymore. When the Big Ten picks up, Stanford and UCLA, I don't know how that's a Midwest thing anymore. So, yeah, they'll probably, they don't even have 10 teams anymore, right? They've got like 16 teams. So, yeah, I would prefer to be in the conference with Florida and Alabama and Georgia because those are the teams I want to see us play. I don't want to be driving. I don't want to be going up to Michigan and all that stuff. So anyway, all right, conference realignment, that's fun stuff. Again, we'll kind of see where we're at in the next few months with that, if anything has broken or anything's kind of come out. Couple more things, and we will get out of here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you'll do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. We would appreciate it. John Butler lands on the Pelicans on his summer league roster after going undrafted. Not shocking. I don't think that he went undrafted, but lands on the Pelicans. Hopefully he can, make the G League, make a practice squad, things like that. Wish the absolute best for Butler. Any quick thoughts there?
I mean, if he doesn't make it, he can ask Zion Williamson for a little bit of money because he just signed a $250 million contract after just playing 85 games in 3 years. So, hopefully it works out for him. Like you said, I do think he's a guy that has a skill set who can play in this league for several years. It's just going to take some time. So he might be one of those guys that bounces around the G League for the first 2 to 3 years. And, maybe some injuries happen. He gets called up and, makes the best of his opportunity. And I think that's what we're hoping for out of him. So best of luck to John Butler for sure.
Florida State baseball lands a transfer from West Virginia. McGuire Holbrook, his .327 batting average last season would have led the team. He also averaged a .401 on-base percentage and .509 slugging. He caught 20 games, I saw, so not sure if he'll DH or if he'll play a little catcher, probably both. Also had 43 RBIs, 22 walks, 13 doubles, 6 home runs. Appreciate Richie putting all that together so that I could sound good and act like I knew what I was talking about. But picks up a transfer. McGuire Holbrook, would assume that we'll see more in the portal. Had a few guys leave, so I would expect Link to pick up some more guys on that end. Richie, do you have anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's give a shout out to our friends over at 247 and the guy who gave me my podcasting start, Trey Rowland, has joined the team at 247. So most of you guys know he did the Rollcast, started that independently. Did all the editing and everything himself, and then TJ kind of guilted him in, saying, "Hey, you need a producer. You're big time now." So I got to work with Trey for a season, had a blast. Great dude. Huge gain for the folks over at 247.
Yeah, shout out Trey. The Noles 247 brand grows. The absolute best in the business when it comes to covering Florida State football. I'll say we do the Olympic sports better, but shout out to those guys for how they cover football. Honestly, they do a great job with basketball too, and baseball with Brett. So I'll give us the sports outside of those three. We'll take the crown for. But shout out to the guys in those 247. We mention them often, but Brendan and Chris and Zach do a great job. Dane over there acquiring the X's Knowles guys, Brett Nevitt for baseball, and also Trey, as you just mentioned. So appreciate them. Appreciate they, and they always support us. So those are our guys for sure. And they don't ruin any kids' commitments. So had to get that in. All right, we will be back. I don't think we have a pop-up or anything this week. Enjoy the 4th with your families. Stay safe. Shout out to, I'll use my shout out. Shout out to USA. So 246 years, is that right? 246 years of being the best country on earth. So shout out us. Richie, have a great 4th of July. Again, I don't think any pop-up episodes this week, but stay tuned because you never know around here. We try to bring the heat. We did record a show with Alex Atkins that you guys can go find again on our YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening to this. Also one with Michael Alford last week. So we had a lot of good content come out. Go check those out. We will be back on Sunday of next week. Until then, you guys enjoy the holiday and go Noles.